A perfect night for Chelsea and Enzo Maresca. That is my feelings on last night's emphatic 5-1 win over Ajax in the Champions League. I'm Daniel Childs. This is my full-time feelings, my review, breakdown, analysis on Chelsea's victory. Please do give me your thoughts down in the comments below. Your man of the match. We did get a red card once again, but this time not for a Chelsea player. But the red card record kind of continues. Hopefully it's coming to an end from a Chelsea point of view. There are many reasons why I think this was a perfect night for Maresca and for Chelsea. Obviously, top of the list, the win, the emphatic nature of the win, but also the other reasons, the fact that Maresca was able to so radically rotate really his squad, rest some key players, be able to take off some key players earlier in the game than it could have been in other situations, and also some record breakers within the team, especially from a youth perspective against a club historically that has of course very much grown a reputation from developing some elite European and world talent, especially at a young age. So yeah, there was much about this game that was really positive. There was also part of this game that felt kind of Conference League vibes, and I'm not saying that to denigrate the result. It just how easy it became for Chelsea and how much we were able to rotate the team, I think kind of signalled how dominant a display it was. And I've got to give credit to Michael Statham from an Ajax point of view. He was on my podcast before the game and he thought Chelsea would thrash Ajax, and that is exactly what happened. So starting off with the lineup that Enzo Maresca picked, I was a little bit surprised by some of the selections. I think the biggest one for me was Jorgensen. I was quite stunned that Jorgensen started, and I have to say we should have kept a clean sheet in this game even after giving away a penalty, because Jorgensen should have saved it, and that was in some ways a bit of a shock to me. But 10 changes in total, so it was a real overhaul from the team that started against Nottingham Forest. But in some ways, you can look at this game and say it's a sign of Chelsea's ability to rotate their squad and still be able to win games, which is the perfect scenario, especially when you're in the Champions League and you need to be picking up points. So Caicedo, it was written down at right back, but for the majority of the game, he really was just playing a central midfield because Chelsea had so much of the ball. Fofana, Tosin, Jarell Hato against his former club, Romeo Lavia getting another start, Enzo Fernandez back in the team, Estevao, Buonanotte, Gittins and Guiu. So I'd say the rest of the team, other than Jorgensen, I think you could have predicted. Like, I don't think it was completely ridiculous that Fofana started this game, that Lavia started this game. You know, Buonanotte, I thought that was kind of an obvious one, especially with no João Pedro. I don't think Chelsea started the game amazingly well, I have to say. It was another sluggish start. It was another start where Chelsea... It's the risk you take. It's that balance you take when you make so many changes and you bring in players from the cold sometimes, or players that are not at kind of peak levels of match sharpness, that there is going to be not only sort of a disconnect with them individually, but also with the players around them. Like if they haven't played, haven't sort of built up their chemistry. And it seemed like actually there were parts of that opening period that, you know, it's always that what if, right? If Taylor doesn't lunge in on Buonanotte in that aspect, you know, do Chelsea still go on and comfortably win this game? We'll never know. But obviously that massively helped us. It was a disgusting challenge, and I was a little bit worried that VAR wasn't going to intervene. They did, and actually it was pretty effective and pretty swift. The red card came out, and it was great, perfect, that we score literally from the free kick that comes from it. Fofana, nice knockdown across the box, and there, of course, was Marc Guiu finally starting a game for Chelsea and getting his first Champions League goal. A wonderful moment. I actually think it was probably a real sign of endorsement by Maresca. This may sound weird that he was taken off at half-time. To me, that signals he is now considered a first-teamer. I think if he was considered someone that needed more minutes for match sharpness, I think it's a sign of protecting Marc Guiu and getting him ready for the weekend, which of course is a really good sign. And for him, perfect, really. Perfect scenario after the strong performance at the weekend. You know, tangibly having something now, scoring a goal. And at that point, he was the youngest goal scorer in the Champions League, but unfortunately, Steve took that a little bit personally. We had the second goal, Caicedo, this probably his least impressive Chelsea goal because it was deflected from long range. And at that point, you think it's just going to be a rout. Stupidly, Tosin, who I think was kind of the worst Chelsea player on the night, other than Jorgensen. I mean, it just really, really poor. And he was doing things that I expect a lot more from Tosin in this kind of environment, where he wasn't actually under a lot of pressure. But it's a really poor penalty to give away. And Wout Weghorst, too, it kind of felt like during the game it was Chelsea versus Weghorst because he seemed to be involved in everything. offensively and defensively, getting involved in challenges, scuffles, squaring up with Caicedo. It seemed to be the Weghorst show, really, especially in that first half. Scores the penalty, and you're kind of like, Chelsea, I don't know if it was complacency, a casualness that they thought that the game was already won, that was really frustrating. But luckily, soon after, we get another penalty before half-time. Enzo Fernandez taken out. Enzo Fernandez takes the penalty, scores. And then Estevao, who'd been showing some daring trickery, some real excitement down that right flank, is actually given the penalty by Enzo Fernandez after he's taken out by Bass. And wonderful to see that, Enzo Fernandez, who could have taken it, added to his goal tally, gives the penalty to Estevao. And I thought the penalty was just ridiculous. And right there, then we had the breaking of the record towards Estevao. I mean, it's one of the best penalties you're going to see. The shame of it is, in some ways, it was, Chelsea were already 3-1 up. It wasn't like a key defining moment. He's already got one of those this season against Liverpool. But, for Estevao, it very much turned into the Estevao show in the second half. And then we had a flurry of changes at half-time. Not really surprising. Trev Chalobah, Andre Santos and Tyrique George all on for Tosin, Enzo Fernandez, and who was the other? Marc Guiu, as I've already mentioned, was taken off. And soon after the break, Tyrique George, just off the bench, scores his first Champions League goal. Just looking at some stats here, Chelsea are the first Premier League side to have 3 different teenage scorers in a match in all competitions since 92-93. And also Chelsea are the first team in Champions League history to have 3 teenagers score for them in a single match: Guiu, Estevao and Tyrique George. It really was a show of Chelsea's future, right? And I guess, with recent briefing, once again, that Chelsea are not so much, heavily reliant on experience and older players. That's a nuanced conversation. It's undeniable we have some very talented young players, and especially the kind of narrative side of it coming against Ajax, who are kind of famed for that, right? There's no denying the quality within this squad, especially from a youth perspective, and it was great that so many of them got to flourish and so many of them got to impress. I mean, Estevao is just a stupidly fun watch. He really is, and it seems like he just enjoys himself out there. You can tell it. The crowd enjoys watching him. He enjoys playing for Chelsea. I just hope he starts a lot more games. I think that's just the one thing I'd say from this game, is that because he played all of it, I'm a little bit concerned he won't be in the starting lineup against Sunderland, and I'd prefer him be in the starting lineup, because I just think Chelsea look a better team and a more fun team to watch. It's not just fun because a neutral point of view, entertainment. No, I think Chelsea look a more threatening team with him on the pitch. So that was a real positive. I also want to give some credit to Jamie Gittins. I thought this was the best Jamie Gittins has looked in a Chelsea shirt. He got an assist on the night, but also he played a brilliant ball, an exquisite cross in the second half that Estevao was inches away from getting on the end of. I just thought it was a more direct. There was a run in the first half where kind of a tight angle down the left, running at the shed where the away fans are, and he just cuts inside, gets past his man, and, looks to get inside the 6-yard box. I thought, Gittins has been very unconvincing so far this season. I do think if you're Garnacho, you're looking at this. I mean, maybe that's a sign that Garnacho got no minutes in this game. I'd be quite stunned. I really hope it's not a situation where now Garnacho starts on Saturday. Because I think that'd be a really bad sign by Maresca. Like, Gittins has played well, Estevao's played well, Neto, you give him a rest, he's played well. For me, Gittins now is kind of higher in the pecking order, and a great moment for him. It's also good that both Fofana and Lavia got themselves substantial minutes, just to kind of increase their match sharpness. Fofana was looking at the bench later on in the game where maybe he sort of pulled up with a little bit of cramp. I don't suspect he'll start at the weekend, but it's just nice that he's getting his fitness up. And I mean, that's really it. I mean, it all round, in terms of, again, just more stats with Gittins here in terms of young Chelsea players. Gittins is the youngest Chelsea player on record since 03-04 to create 5+ chances in a Champions League match. The record previously was held by Eden Hazard, so not bad company, and of course he provided an assist. So all round, this was a perfect night for Chelsea. It was the 3 points we needed. It's kind of that run of games in the Champions League: Benfica, Ajax, Paphos, Atalanta. I think Chelsea need to be walking away with maximum points for the rest of the league phase. They've done that for this game. 5 goals. Some players gain a lot of confidence from it, hopefully. And we move on to Sunderland with also the boost that you've rested Reece James, you've rested Pedro Neto. Caicedo came off very early on in the second half, which is great as well. So all round, like, I don't think you could have asked for a better evening from a Chelsea point of view. It seems like players have come out of it unscathed, and we move on to the weekend. I guess the intrigue, as was the intrigue sometimes from those Conference League games, is how many of the players that played well in this specific game will find themselves in the starting lineup, or is it just back to usual? I actually think there should be a tangible difference in that starting lineup. I mean, if you just look at the starting lineup from Forest, Guiu wasn't in it, Estevao wasn't in it, Caicedo didn't start that game, so at least three there I think will be making their starts. I think should be making their starts against Sunderland. But we will focus specifically on the Sunderland game tomorrow in my team selector. So subscribe, turn those notifications on, like, give me your thoughts down in the comments below on anything I missed from the game, and I'll see you again very, very soon. All the best.